I believe that's 5 o'clock, so I'll call this July 26, 2018 meeting of the Carson City Library Board of Trustees to order. And we can proceed with the roll call.
Chairperson Hayes.
Present?
Vice Chair Long.
Here.
Trustee Solinger. Trustee Patton.
Here.
Trustee Cranston. Cranston.
Present.
A quorum's present. Oh.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item 2, public comment. There is one public comment from the board. We would like to welcome our newest member, Nicholas Cranston. With that, any members of the public who wish to address the library board, now would be the time. Seeing none forthcoming, we're going to take item 5A out of order. We're going to move that up before 3A. So we're going to do the election of the board chair and vice chair. Is there any discussion or motions on that item?
I don't see any room for discussion. I just think you've been doing a wonderful job, and I would like to assume that you would do it again.
I'd be willing to do that.
Okay. So you'll make a motion? Mm-hmm. All right. I move that we elect Jeremy Hayes to be the chairman of the Board of Trustees again.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. And then we do have the matter of the vice chair as well. Is there any discussion or motions on that front?
Okay. I believe Amanda is willing to do that job again, so I'm going to make a motion that we appoint Amanda the vice chair of the Board of Trustees again.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second it.
All right. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, with that, we will go back into order. We'll move to item 3A.
I'm hearing a radio out of that, right?
Yeah, there's something, we've got some sound coming through the speakers.
I don't hear it now.
I don't hear it out of mine.
Oh, well, we'll tough it out.
It's too loud, we'll
Right,
drown it out somehow.
right. All right, so item 3A, the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting from June 28th, 2018. Did everybody have a chance to review those minutes, and were there any necessary changes?
No changes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 28th meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to item 4. Wow. Moving on to item 4, the Friends of the Carson City Library report.
The speaker, it's a radio signal, so it's
Yeah.
probably picking up something.
The report from the Friends is in your packet, and I just have one thing to add, and that's to remind you all of our author event that's happening tomorrow night, 6:30 PM. We have 4 intrepid Western authors posse coming. Mr. Monty McCord, Ms. Sherry Monahan, Mr. Bill Markley, and Ms. Chris Inns. All 4 of them have written books, screenplays, whatever. Some of them are novels, some of them are historical. I'm told that they put on a really good show. So tomorrow evening at 6:30 over at the Browser's Corner Bookstore across the street from the library.
Excellent, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item 5, Library Board of Trustees business. Once again, we have already taken care of item 5A, so we'll move on to item 5B, the NEA Big Read Grant Final Report from the Carson City Cultural Commission.
Good evening, Mark Salinas, Director of Arts and Culture. For the record, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight to give you a final report on a recently wrapped up NEA grant called the Big Read. So what I have in front of us tonight is the same report that I just gave our Cultural Commission a couple of days ago. So that's my intro page. Next. Maybe I'll just do this. Thanks. So just to recap, the NEA Big Read grant is in partnership with Arts Midwest, and what its intent is to challenge communities to make 30 days of programming based upon a pre-selection of novels to spur reader engagement. Of the pre-selection of novels, I chose Charles Portis's True Grit. This is a history of recipients of this grant in the state of Nevada. As you'll see, we're the only recipient in 2018, and no winner was chosen this year. This is sort of a breakdown of how this originated. When I was at the Visitors Bureau, I was the applicant for this. Since I transferred to the city, I administrated it from the city. The 2 partners were the city library and our state museum. And it was important for me to set that up straight from the beginning, because as a capital, I think there should be a relationship between city and state, and especially if there's an opportunity to promote creativity among them, that should happen. So a timeline: I applied for the grant January 2017, notified summer of 2017. Now, the Nevada Day Parade in October 2017, the theme was arts and entertainment. And so what I wrote into this grant was, should you give us this grant, we will pre-celebrate. Events would be in 2018. We'd pre-celebrate November of 2017 with a float. And so this is my sketch design of this rattlesnake float. I trust everyone in the room, as well as everyone in the city, has read this book by now, and you'll know the importance of a rattlesnake in the book. Through the creativity of Kathy Rush, former staffer there at the city, she was able to take the menagerie that you see here in my trunk, my Subaru trunk here on the bottom right, from Home Depot, and transform that into a fantastic work of art. She allowed the WNC Latino cohort to her house to help make this thing. So straight from the beginning, this is a community project. Staffers at the library, as well as WNC students, walked with the float during the parade and had shirts, and this is where the piece landed as a centerpiece of a show that I'll speak to a little later on in my presentation. WNC cohort, there's one of our cultural commissioners, Lupe Ramirez. They were really inspiring to work with. You know, as a department of one, it's hard to do everything from folding the calendars to putting eye patches on the books, and they're really able to jump in to provide some handiwork, as well as provide translation services and visitor welcome to a lot of our events. Everything we see here is just getting ready for the event. This is some great press we got from Reno. Chris Wagner, their arts and culture editor, was also invited to KUNR and spoke about it in advance of our events that happened May to June of 2018, and even got the governor involved in it as well. Being a city entity, it was important for me to use this opportunity to bring in other city departments into what I'm doing. And so what you see here is a vacant wall on the corner of Proctor and Stewart, empty gas containers and broken glass. And there was a campaign through redevelopment called Reimagine Spaces that provided some funds to create artwork to make interventions to fight blight and commercial vacancy downtown. I try to make my moves as efficient as possible and try to stack up collaborators to sort of make a wider impact on what I do. And so I thought this was an opportunity to sort of not only address commercial vacancy, but with the theme of it, plug into this federal grant that we won. So here we see on the left, Dion Reynolds, who's a photographer out of Eureka, Nevada. And this wall was identified as what we would do a humongous wheat paste on. The gentleman on the right owns an RV that was parked outside. I went over there, told him, what was going on. He seemed really stoked for it. So when we went there the next day, he had made this homemade pizza box saying, no parking, artwork coming soon. Here we are installing the work. It's 9 feet tall by 22 feet long. It's a photograph of a ranch outside of Eureka. This wall faces the west, and this is the largest scale artwork that they've done. Dion is a former state board member of the Nevada Arts Council, and he has works in the Nevada Museum of Art in Reno. This is a finished piece right here, and it's spectacular. It's also a great intervention as seen from Carson City. Another city department that I worked with was the fire department. I don't know if everyone has had dinner yet, but these ingredients, Chef Charlie About, I reached out to him and I said, do you have a recipe for for grits? So he sent me a recipe, and our PIO at the city said, Mark, why don't you try to make this at the firehouse? Now, I don't know how many people have tried to make grits for the first time in someone else's kitchen with 2 live cameras on you for a whole bunch of hungry adult men, but I wouldn't advise doing that. But we did it. And it was successful, and those guys appreciated a free lunch. So now we come to the actual kickoff, which was the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of May. I'd sent out a call for artists. I've been collecting these canceled playing cards from local casinos, or 4 casinos that you see there at the bottom, and challenged artists statewide to create something out of these decks of canceled cards. To my pleasant surprise, there were 74 works of arts received, youth, WNC students, and adult categories, and this is the kickoff event at the WNC Art Gallery. These works here represent some of the impact parameter of this work. Of course, one of the main character's fathers was murdered more or less over a game of cards, and that's how this thematically applies to the event. Upper left-hand corner is Incline Village. The lamp on the right is Sparks, the piñata is Las Vegas, the guitar is Winnemucca, and the headdress is from Las Vegas. Now, the 3 pieces on the bottom, Las Vegas, Winnemucca, Las Vegas, those artists actually drove here to Carson City, some of them for the first time, to drop off their piece and pick up the piece again. Local clampers pitched in and created, and I think I'd mentioned this to the trustees earlier, 4 really fun little libraries that were part of the show. As an added bonus, Dion and Trish actually donated the original work of art that inspired the wheat paste. And so this piece, this framed photograph, is now going to be put in front of our Board of Supervisors to be part of our municipal art collection. So that's really cool that they did that. The show itself, impacted other artists. Here we have an artist who is clearly using the remainder of her deck for more artwork that she's selling at fairs. And on the right is Cindy Whitaker and centered. And she, the state of Nevada, puts together a focus group of photographers. They convened statewide, and she was one of the speakers, and she presented at the BAC about this show. These are the 2 best of shows that the city purchased, mother and a daughter from Washoe Valley. The piece right now, I'm in discussion with Reno Tahoe Airport to see if we can get the piece in situ, as you see it, with the bales and hay and all installed in their airport. To my recollection, there's not a advertisement for Carson City, and it would be great if the first impact could be something that was made here in Carson City. It also has the historic value to it. The second day of the kickoff was Carson City Classic Cinema did a screening of the '69 movie of True Grit, and there's Glenn Wharton. He spoke of the prison. We had movie posters and such decorating the library. This is what the library was. This is their setup that they had advertising it. 441 paperbacks distributed for free. We ordered 300 to begin with, and needed to order more. Unfortunately, we can't see it. Maybe can we leave that or close that? There we go. So I also partnered with it so happened that Nevada State Employee Week was during this 30 days of programming, and Mary Woods at the State Library said, hey, if you want to give out books at our front desk, feel free to. So I set up something there. She has received over 500 requests for free True Grit paperbacks throughout the entire state, and she was able to distribute many of these through inter-office mail. So that's another great state partnership. Finally, we're at the library, and this is Cinco de Mayo, and we used the opportunity to engage Spanish readers. We hired fantastic folkloric dancers from Dayton, Nevada. They performed in the parking lot, stopped a lot of traffic, literally. Again, Latino cohort was there to provide translation services. When people walked in, people loved John Wayne around here. And we had I hired these, the mother and daughter, the Lambdons, to create some book art made out of books. And so that was a fun success there as well. Also at the library, that was our kickoff weekend. So also at the library during those 30 days, we had representatives from the Nevada Department of Wildlife coming in and doing workshops on rattlesnake identification. That's not a rattlesnake that she had. Iris, do you remember these waivers? Okay.
Of course.
Are sodas allowed in the library?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Another partner was, I was going to use this opportunity to engage as many people as possible in the community. It was the Capital City Gun Club. And what they did is if you showed your book, you got a free round of skeet. Yeah. The debut of Dion and Trisha's wheat paste that you see on the upper right was made sort of in the middle of the 30 days, and what I did was I went over to the Laxalt building where the Department of Tourism is, and put up a display there and invited them sort of as an after work happy hour to come next door to the Nugget, who was a partner with the Cards, and we hired Silver City musician Milo McCormick to play. So that was a nice opportunity to partner with the state. The State Museum, I don't know if anyone's been to the textile and costume collection on Arrowhead Drive, but this is Jan Lover, and she's their curator, and Jan always does top-notch work. She put a fantastic comparison of the costumes in the '69 movie versus the 2010 movie. And I'm always happy when me, having moved here, less than 2 years ago, am able to introduce Carson City assets to Carsonians. So these women live in Carson City, but they've never been there before. So that's always fun to sort of share those experiences together. And Jan took out costumes that were of that era, quilts and stuff. The State Museum, of course, here on Carson Street put together fantastic programming as well, and children's craft events and lectures. The Children's Museum across the street did a really good job, and sometimes there's a saying, I think it's Frank Lloyd Wright, the details tell about how well things are made. Maybe it's Charles Ames, but they're really good with the details, and they decorated the place up really nice. And this was really reaching out to the very young citizens of Carson City and their parents. They did a fun job there. And they have Children's Museum of Nevada and of Northern Nevada, and the Arts for Children of Northern Nevada put together additional programming and made quilts. Among all the work, I was able to step out and get a little behind-the-scenes tour with Glenn Wharton of the actual prison, so that was really neat. Checking out the artwork inside there was kind of a hoot. Okay, but back to work. And then we also reached out to Stewart Indian. They had we had some traveling book reading, and one of the readers groups convened there. This was the setup at the State Library Archives. Anyhow, so Mary Woods had asked me, there are so many people, I need to reach out to them and say something. So I put together a sort of little thank you for reaching out and asking for a book. Unfortunately, we don't have the budget to order 500 additional books, but we'll aim to try harder next time is what I said. The wrap-up was, on a federal level, I reached out to the U.S. Marshal for the state of Nevada, Christopher Hoy, and implored him to come to Carson City and tell us what a true marshal does today, vis-a-vis what Rooster Cogburn did. I took him to the Boys and Girls Club, and we walked into this. They had made a big banner for him. He walked away with a whole bunch of cool swag. These kids really loved him. You can't really see it here, but up on the wall, we're showing, on YouTube, there's a great interview of him. Up in the front, you'll see the movie posters and some books that we gave out. And of course, as with any group of kids, when you conclude your presentation, you ask the crowd, are there any questions? No one raises a hand. However, when you say, all right, thank you, goodbye, that's when everyone rushes the stage. And so we were there a good hour. Chris, a fantastic guy, just answering all these kids' questions and taking pictures with them and accepting all their little gifts that they gave. The Chamber honored True Grit as being the best of event for 2018. And I wanted to give a thank you to the Carson City Library, State Museum, staff there that helped me along this process. Federal level, the U.S. Marshals Department. On a state level, these entities were kind enough to partner and recognize what we were doing. On a city level, departments that provided valuable services, our city partners, Carson City businesses and individuals, news entities for Northern Nevada, and finally, all of the artists. So I'm really happy to have, reached out and connected to every person that you see here on this list. And I'm ending with this image because I'm not going to embarrass the person who sent this to me, and I met a lot of people, in these 30 days, but this was an email I got, and the person who sent me this said, attended a couple of your True Grit events, and I was at home and staring at my ceiling, and in the smoke detector, I saw Rooster Cogburn's face. And so she went up there and with her Sharpie put in a little eye patch. And if you look, if you have the right creativity, you can sort of see that face. So I think those are the impacts that I think really make a community when they can go home and start thinking about it at home. That makes me pretty happy. Are there any questions?
Well, first, Mark, I want to thank you for everything that you've done with this. True Grit is one of my favorite books. It's two of my favorite movies. And everything that you did to honor this book and Carson City as a whole really was just phenomenal. And thank you so much for doing that. So, I don't know, did the board have any other comments, questions?
No, I can't say it any better. You did a great job. This is awesome.
I hope that this, serves as an example as how, city departments can use creativity to leverage what they do. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. Oh, now we have to go back to real work. All right. With that, we will jump directly into the Carson City Library Policy, item 5C.
Okay, and let's see how our connection works to bring Sina into the discussion. This is the Carson City Library Policy. You should have that in your pack, the draft, with information. Sina, are you able to participate?
The only thing that I want to say on this is just there are some minor corrections on it. For instance, adding a piece in there about Adams Hub, and that there will be different policies that apply to Adams Hub due to some of the questions we were getting, and really just kind of correcting and fixing some of the issues that were in our policy. Iris and I do have this on a list of something to deal with in the future, and really going through our policy with a fine-tooth comb. This is just an update of that, and as you can see on your paper, you have the July dates there as revised and approved, if you approve it today. This was something that we were going to look at in the June meetings and did not get to at that time. That's all.
Okay, did all of the board members get a chance to review the changes to the,
Yes.
okay. Was there any discussion regarding the content?
I had no problems with the revisions, but I did find a couple of typos. I mean, I didn't find them, they jumped out at me. So I thought I dug, here we go. I'm sorry?
I said you could send us the typos, or are there just a couple?
It's
or-
just a couple.
Okay.
It was on page 10, was the first one that I found.
Okay, that is?
Now I gotta find it again. I think it was just leaving an E off of the word note, because what it says is not, and it didn't make any sense to me. Here it is. And then next to the last line, under Act 2 Collaboration Room, it says, please note that the room is not soundproof. Yeah. That was one. And the other one was, I didn't circle these. It was another one that didn't make sense to me the way it was worded. And I think it was, well, I may have to find that one and give it to you later. But it was, again, I think it was just a typo. It was an R and should have been an N, or vice versa.
Okay, that'd be fine,
Okay.
just forward,
Yeah.
and then
On
it'd be
page
to the
11,
pleasure
yeah.
to approve it with the corrections.
Yep.
It's just a correction of one letter. I just can't find it right now.
So in that case, I believe that we can still approve the Carson City Library policy pending proofreading. Would that be sufficient?
So you can definitely approve it. It sounds like the changes that are being requested are non-substantive
Right.
anyway. They're just grammatical
Yeah, it doesn't
typos. So
change.
just incorporate that into the motion,
Okay,
and then you'll be fine.
all right.
I move to approve the changes as presented with any typo corrections made.
Seconded.
Okay, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And with that, we'll move on to item 5D, the Adams Hub for Innovation Interim Strategic Plan.
Good evening. For the record, Valerie Quape, Business Development Manager for the Special Library Services Program of Economic Development at the Adams Hub for Innovation, or SLSPED. We do what we can. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of give a little bit of background on the development of this, and then we're going to kind of scan through it. So if there's anything specifically that jumps out at you, please feel free to stop me at any time. So a little bit of background. We had talked about doing a strategic plan for the Adams Hub specifically, and we really wanted to do that alongside or in conjunction with the new and upcoming library strategic plan. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen for a few months. In the meantime, we really wanted to kind of get some structure and some key performance indicators together to kind of help us along until that time comes. And so after speaking with Sina, we decided to do a very kind of skeleton provisional strategic, I know I'm like hiding here in the corner. A very skeletal provisional strategic plan to kind of get us moving until then. So as we talk about the process, and Diane, you can go ahead and scan through a little bit down to the next page, a little further. It's like full Word pages if you want to. Okay. Yeah, you can go down. Next page.
Past the table.
Past the table of contents. Okay, perfect. So I included a very brief background about the foundation, and then again, giving the purpose of this plan. For the methodology, once Sina and I decided to move forward with doing a provisional plan, I sketched together some ideas, we sat down, we hashed things out, and we came up with some objectives, sample activities, and key performance indicators from there. So this was not a full strategic planning process. We did not engage stakeholders, we did not engage governance, etc. So that is something that you will see later on in this plan, is to do a full strategic planning process. So as we come down here, we started out with identifying a provisional mission, vision, and some values. So our mission is really to ensure that the Adams Hub for Innovation maintains its status as a place for, can you scroll up a little bit?
So it's drying.
Okay.
There.
Okay, perfect. A place to help local and regional entrepreneurs work, learn, and grow. And our vision really is that we are this place that fosters the entrepreneurial spirit within the community as members of all ages embark on their quest to develop innovative and marketable business solutions. This is done through coaching, mentorship, education, and networking. The values we identified were innovation, learning, growth, diversity, collaboration, and accountability. We felt that these specific values fostered those or mirrored those of the library, as well as kind of showed how we're wanting to kind of push the limits of previous library programming and move forward in this new venture that is innovative within itself, doing this in a library. So if we go down to the next page, we identified 3 goals. The first of which to be engage appropriate stakeholders to develop a vision and final strategic plan to carry us through the remainder of the 3-year grant. The second goal being to create a dynamic environment for entrepreneurs and startups to work, learn, and grow their business. And the third being to support the expansion of the skilled and educated workforce in Carson City through partnerships and program development. So with that third goal, that really stems from feedback that we've received from elected officials as well as from other stakeholders within the community. So over the last couple months, I've had the opportunity to talk to our clients as well as other representatives from other organizations throughout the city and other business members or members of the business community. And that's something that they've identified as a huge gap, is having that skilled workforce for companies that are coming into the area. And so we felt that that was something that we could start to really help foster at the Adams Hub for Innovation. Okay, now we can go down to goal 1. So here we identified 4 objectives. The first of which would be to, by August 31st, establish an advisory board for SILSPED. And the purpose of this advisory board would really be to kind of help us keep our momentum as time goes on. And it would be not only hopefully include representation by the Board of Trustees, but also representatives from other partner organizations within the business community. So we're really tying the library in with the rest of the ecosystem as well within that plan. So that's kind of the main objective there. Objective 2 is by December 31st, engage the advisory board, SILSPED staff, and key stakeholders in a full strategic planning process. And finally, on that note, by March 31st, 2019, complete and publish an organizational strategic plan for SILSPED that runs to the end of the grant. Lastly, by September 30th of this year, implement a business retention survey for Carson City, Dayton, Carson Valley, Minden, and Gardnerville. And that is something that came about through discussions with CINA, as well as with other members of the business community. That business retention is something that we really kind of need to examine, at least, and see if there's anything that we can do there programmatically. So you'll notice that that is one where CINA is the point person instead of myself. This blue box below, these are our KPIs, or key performance indicators. So the first one matches the first objective. That would be having our advisory board formed. The second being our strategic planning process completed. The third being our plan published. And the fourth is looking at our survey response rate, from the survey that is put out by CINA. We did keep, I know that survey response rate may look kind of low, but given the nature of really kind of far-reaching surveys, that's kind of ambitious. All right, so our second goal, to create a dynamic environment for entrepreneurs and startups to work, learn, and grow their business. Our first objective was by the end of this year to achieve 90% occupancy of our executive startup spaces. The second objective would be to, again, by the end of this year, increase the total co-working memberships by 400%. Right now, that's 3 people, so that shouldn't be too hard. Trying to be a little moderate here. Our third objective was by the end of the year to evaluate rental income generated by the studio at Adams Hub for projected cost recovery. So if we keep it as a rental space, or we try to keep it as a rental space, what does that look like income-wise? Does it make sense to keep it open? Does it make sense to put in offices? Just so that we have more of a baseline. And then the fourth objective is by October 31st of this year, plan an incubator program that suits the ecosystem and our resources. 2 key points there. So our KPIs. So the first one is the number of executive startup spaces occupied. The second is the number of monthly co-working memberships. And that does mean monthly, not day pass or 6 punch pass, because there's a couple of more drop-in type flexible memberships. The third, total monthly studio rental income. And the fourth being incubator plan program completed. All right, and our last goal, to support the expansion of the skilled and educated workforce in Carson City through partnerships and program development. So our first objective is by the end of October to create or to train the creative learning team staff on the new e-curriculum. Just a quick note on that, the contractor that we are putting in place for the new e-program over at the Adams Hub has been out of the country, so there may be some changes to the activities in there and the timelines depending on what she thinks and feels on that, so just be warned. The second objective, by December 31st, have at least one complete session or program of the new E scheduled at Carson High School. After discussing with the contractor, it sounds like this is something that had previously been implemented during spring semester, so that's why we said planned by the end of the year, not necessarily implemented by the end of the year. The third, by the end of September, transition existing business education programs hosted at the library to the SILSPED at Adams Hub, so kind of start to move those classrooms over into, those classes as much as we can over into the Adams Hub space. There may be some that we just can't do that because they need computers or et cetera, or other resources, but trying to make that shift. Fourth objective, by the end of August, develop an internship program to provide education and skill development for students at Carson High and college levels. Again, we really want to support our youth as they move forward in their skill set, so when they go on to college, they can get a good college job that will actually be a resume builder instead of just something to pay the bills. Our fifth objective, fill 2 internship positions to be hosted at our facility. And lastly, by the end of October, develop a professional education and networking program with select offerings available to community members at large. And so what that is what programs are we going to have on an ongoing basis? And then what's going to be open to the community members, and then what's going to be members only, or clients only. And that is what really adds the value for our clients, and that's kind of what they're paying for. So we have a set of 6 KPIs here. The first one, percentage of creative learning team staff trained in the new e-program. The number of completed new e-programs scheduled. The third being number of workshops, presentations, lunch and learns, or others hosted at the Adams Hub per month. The fourth, percent completion of the internship program plan, shooting for 100. The fifth, number of intern positions filled. And the sixth is the number of networking and client-only events per month. And our last page is just a very brief list of acronyms for reference. And I think that is it. Are there any questions or comments, concerns?
That seems like an ambitious slew of goals to achieve mostly by the end of this year. Are you up for it?
Yes. It really, the nice thing about this is this formalizes a lot of things that we had already discussed and we're planning to do. And so it gives us an opportunity to as all strategic plans do, it gives us an opportunity to get on the same page and make sure that we have clear communication about what we're actually trying to accomplish. So.
Any discussion from the board? In that case, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Special Library Services Program for Economic Development at Adams Hub for Innovation Interim Strategic Plan.
I'll second that.
Okay, those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 5E. As I understand it, this piece is actually going to be tabled due to, was it that the presenter is not?
The presenter was not able to be here tonight.
Right, okay.
From the cooperative.
However, I do know that the white paper is attached in the reports, and so we will be revisiting this presumably next month, correct? Yeah. So without further ado, we'll move on to item F, the library strategic planning for 2020 to 2025.
Thank you, Diane Baker, for the record. And we are underway with the planning for the library and for the next strategic plan. I do want to confirm to you that we did receive the LSTA funds from the State Library. Actually got the money papers in hand, so we are getting everything set up and ready to roll with those funds as well. What I have before you to take a look at is the EDGE assessment that we had started in spring of this year. This was something we could get underway, and if a couple of you, maybe just Phyllis, I did have a brief discussion about EDGE a little over a year and a half ago, as far as the EDGE assessment, that it is a great tool that has been developed and used throughout the library community, and we have applied it to our situation here. So I'd like to run through a few of the findings, and so you can see where we're at. And this provides a great baseline of information as we proceed through the strategic planning process. So an overview, EDGE, and it is a nationwide program. As you see here, it's national benchmarking. There are 3 strategic areas, 11 benchmarks, and 158 indicators. What comes along with this tool are three very useful sections. One is a peer comparison tool, where you get your information, then you can go out and see how you look compared to other libraries that translate to your type of situation. There are some additional executive tools, and there is training available through this process. We are thrilled to be able to have this, and it's a tool that has come to us, and it's available to libraries within Nevada through the State Library and Archives and Public Records. And so, as I mentioned, nationwide, you can see where things have been going on here. You kind of see, can you see Indiana there? That particular state, and actually really Texas as well. It's just the communities are much further apart. Those particular states have had statewide initiatives where it was rolled out in a very direct approach to roll it out in every single public library. And let's go on here. So let's start taking a look at the areas that are available in EDGE. There are three. The first is community value, and this is libraries provide programs, services that enable people to get value from their use of technology. Now, just so you can take a look here are the benchmarks within that particular section. So the benchmarks relate to digital literacy, digital content, and then providing technology resources directly to patrons as well. Breaking it down a little bit, you don't have to read every single one of these, but you're looking at the indicators that are within this particular community value goal. And there you see essentially there's three that are broken out into multiple questions. And let's go in and we'll dissect one of the indicators specifically so you can see how this information was built and when we get to the final scores. So this is indicator 2.3. The library provides access to information resources through its website. So we had a question response for a multiple of these. You see on the left-hand side levels. You see levels 1, 2, and 3. Within the program, level 1 is considered foundational, the basic level of services that they are looking to have all public libraries. Then as you move up, level 2, your enhanced services, level 3 is the highest level of service. And one thing to keep in the back of your mind, when this was originally developed, it was developed by the Urban Libraries Council. So it was really developed initially looking at some of the very large urban systems that are in the country. So this is us. You see, great, we have scores within level 1 into level 2, the enhanced, and the highest level is one in particular looking at doing reference services through real-time messaging services. We already do reference, we take information and reference questions by email, but that's not what this is regarding. This is to have the real time. So this is something that we are looking forward to. And again, this is some of the big boys in library land. This is where, they already exist, but we're reaching for that direction as well. So that gives you an idea within community value, one of the indicators. The next section is engaging the community and decision makers. And this comes at a really good time for us as we're moving into strategic planning, because that is the point where we can connect with our community. So you see the benchmarks here of working with the community regarding digital inclusion, having public access, and looking at best practices for digital inclusion as well. Again, breaking out some of the indicators that you find within this particular section, and we can pop down and take a look inside one of the indicators. Now this is a slice of reality, and that's the good thing about some of these tools, so we can see where we really are. And we clearly have the initial level, level 1. When you're looking at the other levels that are listed here, These are aspects that great for us to have as a foundation as we're developing our strategic plan process, and will help us to make sure that we are including the aspects that we need within the community and within the technology things that we have listed here. Now, I should have said at the beginning, if you have any questions on what some of these are, I'd be glad to answer as we go. You don't have to save them for the end. Okay. And then the final section, libraries manage resources so that members of the community who need or want access can get it regardless of ability, skill, personal technology, or available time. Quick look at the benchmarks that you see here. In organizational management, you're seeing some of our scores that we have. And then also the specific indicators under organizational management. So let's take a look here as well. And again, we're looking at the reality of where we're at, which is it's a really great thing to have this. Level 1, we've got part of that, and we've also are looking at what's available in level 2 and 3. One of the things that we are definitely looking at is expanding the resources that we have that for people that have different abilities within the community. We have some basic resources, but this is a focus for us to look forward. And this is not something that was actually addressed in our last plans, so this will be very good to include. So, summary, where do we look? How do things look for us? This gives you some of the areas where we're kind of knocking it out of the park with digital tools, strategic partnerships, digital literacy, areas where we need to look closer, see if where we can make improvement, if it's reasonable for our resources and our community to work in these areas, or how much to work in these areas. So planning, technology, inclusiveness, strategy, and evaluation. I'll give you a little bit more generally on overall scoring. So within each of the sections that are listed there, community value, 275 out of 310. Engaging the community, 200 out of 295, and organizational management, 260 out of 395. So our total in this was 735 out of 1,000. Okay, those are great numbers, but what does it mean? And that's where that peer comparison tool, we're able to apply that here so we can see where we really stack up. And if you look at this, when you take a look at our peers, we're doing pretty good. Kind of wonder first, it's 700 out of 1,000, but that is really, that's the absolute high mark for everyone that has the best of all resources. And at this point, Carson City, as a baseline, as we're going into the strategic planning process, we have a pretty good foundation with regard to this particular benchmarking tool. So the opportunities we're looking at, technology training in Spanish, real-time digital reference, one of the ones I had mentioned, online guides, instruction in e-government resources, becoming a 211 service. Are you all familiar with 211 being, okay, perfect. And quarterly instruction in navigating health and wellness resources, especially since they are almost completely online these days. And not just WebMD type thing. And a couple of other aspects that you have listed there, engaging in the community, benchmarking, and what we have for organizational management. And with all the technology we do, and we have a lot of plans, we have been able to go forward in fits and starts in some ways, but make a lot of progress. Now we're looking at moving into including technology, a full-blown technology plan, and not just the pieces that we've had in our strategic plan before. Do you have any questions on what we have here at this point?
I don't have any questions, I just have comments. I think this shows that you have a very high level of service already. We're kind of approaching the big guys, as you say, in a small community. So kudos for that. And I think this tool is going to help tremendously in putting the strategic plan together. So, good.
I do have a question, and you may not have an answer for me at the moment, and that's fine. But regarding creating more user-friendly technology solutions for people with disabilities, what kind of resources are you planning to leverage to do that?
Well, our first part is to make sure that we include that in the plan, and that's where we're looking at this point. And we would be looking for our partners that are not only at the state level, but also in the city level and nonprofits, NPOs, to see where they can be included as we develop that plan. Because I think we really need to look at the resources that are here in the community or in Northern Nevada and have them included in the planning process, so we would have those resources or have those aspects to be able to leverage and include to make that improvement.
And Diane?
Yes.
This is Sina. I'd like to add something. Tell me when you're ready.
You're on.
Okay, I would just like to add, kind of getting the underlying piece of what he's asking there. We don't have the budget, and the city has not in the past provided additional support, especially with technology. This past year, and it looks like from here on out, they will match Friends funding of $5,000 with an additional $5,000 to replace our public access computers. But this is not for any additional technology. So I just want to make that clear, and so you guys have an understanding of what the budget for some of that might look like. That we don't have it.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to echo what Phyllis was saying. Some of the scores that were called out in the beginning of the report were a little bit concerning. They were a little bit low. And then, getting to the peer comparison, when we're kind of looking at our weight class, if you will, we're doing exceedingly well. And I think that this is going to be a great tool to go forward and, use in conjunction with the planning process to, kind of guide what it is with it that we need to be doing over the next 5 years. So I think that's great.
Did you may have said this at the beginning, I might have missed it, but where does this information come from? Like, is it surveys that people are taking, or?
This particular assessment tool, it's developed and oriented towards libraries, so it is library specific on that part. It comes with a list of assessment questions, so it's a self-assessment questionnaire on that part. So you go through, identify the different indicators, the questions that go with that, and rank where you are. Most of them are yes or no questions, some of them are yes now, we're planning to do it, it's just not happening yet, and then it's like, I don't know that we'll ever really be able to get to it. Those three types of categories are in the question breakout. So it's a self-assessment tool.
And then the data is compared against all of these libraries across the United States, correct? Right, based on different size classes and all that. Correct.
Yeah, and that's on the report. And there was one other just quick thing that is in your packet that I think what Amy was referring to is the training. Is that what you were referring to?
No.
Oh, okay.
The peer libraries, how is that determined? What is our peer group?
The
Is
peer
there a definition?
I don't have that in front of me, but the peer group is determined on, it's a number of categories as far as your population size, your fiscal basis, the size of the resource, or the number of resources in your organization. So there are a number of things that make up the determination of what a peer is. I can get you that detail if anyone's interested. Okay?
Okay. In that case, I would, if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion. I believe, what is it that we're looking for from this item? Is it just a motion to continue using the information from EDGE to inform our strategic planning decisions?
This would be a motion to accept the plan and the results. And that's all that we're bringing it forward for you to accept them.
Sina here. It's also not completely necessary. This item will come up multiple times throughout the next couple of meetings due to us not having our planning meeting. And so essentially, if you were going to give us any direction, this would need to be an action item.
And it is an action item, so, but at this point, since it is going to come up, I don't think it needs direct action, but it can be accepted. That's, Sina, any other thoughts? Okay.
If we have direction.
So I think that, considering that we haven't had the planning meeting yet and things like that, I would think that we would want to go ahead and table this. I think it was great information to bring to us. But I think that, if we table this until next month, then we'll be able to make a more cogent determination of, where the strategic planning for the 2020-25, 2020-2020.
That.
2020 to 2025 session will be. So if all the board members are amenable to that, then we'll go ahead and table this item until the following month. But thank you very much, Diane. With that, we can move on to item 6A, the Library Director Administrative Reports.
Okay, Sina, if you are ready? No problem. Okay.
Okay, so the first thing that you're going to see here is not quite our end of the year reports from June. You're going to see the general fund. This is the revenue page. This is the traditional. We are within our budget for our expenditures. There are some items because of the delay with how the city records their expenditures. We are still going to have to show you another June 2018 closing in August. That's how the city works, and so that's what we'll be showing you. Diane, if there's no questions on this, we'll go ahead and go down to the new 2019 because there are some changes with how we're doing that.
Getting there.
It's going to be the different link.
Oh, okay.
It's a different document.
Got it.
Okay, so what we have here, we use Smart Sheets. The city uses Smart Sheets. It's kind of an Excel application online, and they use it for asset management. The public works uses it very heavily. But one of the things that we saw that we could do with this was build dashboards. And I think that this is potentially, if you guys say that you want to go this route, a better way to show you and our public, the community, an interactive reporting of our budget. And so what you'll see is you'll see the revenue and expenditures in running our reports because the city is behind. We currently do not have expenditures for the new fiscal year in July. We will as of next month. And then you're going to see expenditures and details about those expenditures, details about 230, which is the library's gift fund, and then 232, which is slush beds or special library program, library services program for economic development. Budget is on here as well. And so, for instance, if Diane clicks on the FY19 revenue box, then what she's going to get is a link that takes her to our reports. So you still actually get access to all of those budget reports.
Yeah, I'm working on that. Expenditure. Back up. There.
It's at the top.
Got it, I think. Is that where you're going?
So while she's, okay, so then those are all the reports for that. And so you'd be able to look at the report specifically. Are there any comments about the way this is done? Do you like being able to have the dashboard rather than just the graphs essentially on each of the pages of the Google sheet that I was using? Do you have any input on those?
Seeing this is Jeremy. I'm always a fan of a good dashboard as a data nerd. The only thing that I would change is maybe sorting the vertical bar charts. But I think this is phenomenal. You know, I think that we're getting a lot more information, a lot more actionable information from this. I think it's great.
Yeah, for my non-numbers brain, I like this.
So that we can get that on here better for you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, other than that, I'm going to go ahead and say that I have my written report in the packet. I actually don't have it. I don't have it on me, so unless Diane brings it up, it was written 2 weeks ago based on when we submit our items, or a week ago at least, for the board packets. So unless I see that, I'm not going to be able to tell you what's on it.
Is that for the administrative report?
Yeah.
This one.
So that
One of the things that you all do know is Kathy's last day was last Friday. We also, today was Jen, our senior library assistant in creative learning's last day. That position is actually now posted. Kathy's position is not yet posted. Irmal has agreed to work through the CCA contract and take on some additional responsibilities for the contracted 5% pay bump. And he'll go ahead and help us out with some of that while we make sure that we're putting out the request for hire, describing the duties and everything that we need that individual to be doing. And the other things that you're going to see on here is different things that I attended in June. You're going to see the Polaris migration. We actually have a date for that, so we will be moving to the cloud on the 14th of August. with the co-op and the cooperative. So you will hear more about that when we have Cindy present to you about what the cooperative does and what being a member means. The biggest thing you need to know right now is it means that we have a library catalog and we have a way to check things in and out. That is the biggest cost associated with being in the cooperative, and that is our biggest benefit. You will then see that we did get the donation of the shelving from WNC. Most of that shelving is up at this point. Informational wise, we have a new board member. Welcome. And we are trying to work out what library improvements are actually made it into the budget. It appears as if the end of that budget approving process, some of the facilities items were not approved, and so we are trying to evaluate if that means our upstairs spaces and the digitorium will not receive new flooring this fiscal year. HVAC will be happening in Creative Learning. That is confirmed that will be a go. It has been tremendously hot in that space for staff the last couple of weeks, and so we hope that gets going pretty soon. Other items that you'll see here, working with Valerie. Valerie and I just got back from, and I don't want to spoil her reporting for later on here, but from Arizona for a review of what libraries are doing with economic development. It was a really good trip, and I actually am now outside of Indiana, but I took a look at one of the libraries that does, it's kind of like virtual holds. It uses RFID to help patrons use their phones to locate their holds, and I'm staying with a friend here, but I'm working for you guys tonight. And then I will be going to Georgia and attending Ripple, which is Research Institute for Public Libraries. And that looks to be a really good item for us to move forward with in the planning process for our strategic plan. It is limited to 100 attendees, and I was invited to attend that training. Are there any questions?
No, it doesn't look like we have any questions on our end. Sina, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we can move on to item 7, all of our administrative reports, starting with grants administration.
Yes, Diane Baker for the record, and just a quick note here, we are in the grant wrap-up process. The one that I have here, of course, in front of you is the makerspace, and we did end up the grant time period at June 30th with a lot of programs, but we are still moving forward strong. We have been able to continue forward and keeping certification classes and some workshops. Next week, if any of you are interested in certifications, I think we have 3 different certification programs going. We have had open hours on the weekend, and so we are really able to integrate what we have started with that grant program already. And we are looking also with the materials or the equipment that we have there to use some of the materials and the like to support programs. We're doing some laser cutting work for 2 upcoming programs for our moon rocks, and then some items also for Safety Day at the fair. We are wrapping up several other grants. Next week, some reports are due for some of our community enhancement grants, and then this particular grant and the Playaway grant, all those things need to be finalized by the 1st of October. The other thing that I have on here, just couldn't resist, we had the Navy Woodwind Quintet came and performed during Navy Week, so we were able to have them through, and they were fabulous. We had a nice turnout for the group, and some of them were, I guess you could call them groupies. They were following them every place that they went, and so they made a point to come here to listen, to them at the library as well. But it was a very nice presentation, and we had it in the open space, so it was available for individuals just to walk by. We had some do that or walk over from the children's area, and others just came, to sit and listen to it. So it was a very nice use of the open space and to have this particular group here. Very enthusiastic, and they love doing libraries for performances. So that's what I have for this month's report. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. And I'm definitely looking forward to the moon rocks and all that. Moving on to item 7B, the Solsped at Adams Hub update.
This is government, we do acronyms. Again, for the record, Valerie Quape, Business Development Manager of the Solsped at Adams Hub. So the two things on this report we've kind of already covered. So first of all, our provisional strategic plan, so thank you for that. And then secondly, we were going to try to bring forward the proposal for an advisory board, so look forward to that next meeting. We are working with Iris on exactly what that structure will look like and what we need to do to make sure that we are doing that within the scope of the law. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Phoenix because that was really fun. So when we were out in Phoenix, we got to visit, I think it was 6 different library sites in addition to a university incubation center and a private co-working space as well. And what we learned, so the libraries were the 2 branches of Mesa Public Library in Mesa, Arizona, Tempe Public Library, the Hive at the Central Library in Phoenix, which is huge. That facility is gigantic. And then we also swung by Scottsdale Public Library. Program to help collegiate entrepreneurs move forward and figure out how to gain funding for their different ventures. And unfortunately, the staff member we were supposed to meet was out sick. But we did get to walk around, and that was a very cool facility. It was like a combination of the UNR Innovation Center mixed in with other corporate offices, with also apartments and restaurants and everything in this central area. It was a really cool concept, with, of course, like a shade structure so that you don't die in the 50 feet as you walk between buildings, because it was 116. And then we also visited Cahoots, which is a private co-working space, and that was really where we felt like we had a lot more in common with them and our current space and status. So a few things that we learned from this process was, first of all, everybody's constantly learning and changing and evolving and kind of on a minute-to-minute basis. So as we are working on this project, we have to remember we may have a strategic plan. We're also going to be changing and tweaking just so that we can make sure that we are providing the best services to our clients, to our community, and using community resources the best we can. And those resources being our funding from the Hoppe May Adams Foundation. The second thing we learned was that everyone did do things differently, and what we are is kind of a mixture of all these different sites that we visited. And so to keep that in mind, that there's no 2 programs the same, even within the 2 Mesa libraries, those were somewhat different in ways. And so it's always going to be a little bit of apples to oranges, and to be comfortable with the fact that we're not replicating something exactly. And thirdly, we learned that there's some opportunities for collaboration that we might want to explore. Maybe potentially with out-of-state partners, maybe in Arizona, but also we had discussions there where they were partnering with a lot of organizations that have branches here in Nevada that haven't been partnered with previously by the Adams Hub. So we were hoping to kind of leverage that a little bit more and kind of explore that. So those are the main points. More ideas to come that we will report on. So.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Valerie. I heard you guys might have swung by surprise as well and seen an old employee of the library, so.
We might have. That rumor might be true.
Great. With that, we'll move on to item 7C, the collection development update.
Amy Lauder, Collection Development Manager for the record, and if it's all right, I'm going to also do the Access Services Report.
Perfect, thank you.
Since if you look at them, they look very, very similar. Those two departments have worked very, very closely together, especially the tech side of Access Services. And since Kathy's gone away to go help out the state library, I'm kind of taking on some of the more technical parts of that while Irma's taking on some of the other things as well. But yeah, the summer's kind of weird in our areas. Creative Learning is in their full-blown programming setup while we are kind of changing over fiscal years. So we have, talking about the book budget, but also one of the projects we were working on this summer was shelving. And it's like, we just did this 6 months ago, but because we're so good at it now, we're doing some more. We did get this opportunity to get, as Kathy put it in her report, gently worn steel shelving from the college library, since they are undergoing a full overhaul of their look up there. And since nothing in our building, I don't think, can qualify as gently used, this was very exciting. We are not sure how old any of that shelving we did have in there was, but we found some from
San Bernardino.
San Bernardino
City Library.
Yes, and so it may have been passed through a couple of places before it even got to us. So it was very exciting to take that down for the last time and put in some of this much more newer steel shelving that we're using the fiction